Hey guys, welcome back. Um, as always, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, whatever, hit subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, so you're notified right away when I post an episode. Anyway, so I always get people come to me a lot of times asking me different questions about different things, and it's always random. Like people think I have the answers to everything, and I think I do sometimes, right? But it's not really the answer, but it's more how to get the answer. Okay. And there's a lot of talk these days, and really it's a time of year where for some reason my more program really takes off. And I get so many questions. So I just want to pop on here and try to share with you guys, what it actually is. So my more program, I kind of created years ago, and it's basically um, anything you would want more of in your life, right? So I've always been active physically, but I could always eat better, or I can be more productive, or I can make more money, right? So all these little things over the years I needed more of. And so that's where I kind of figured out how to get more of that in your life. But bottom line, it's about being happier, right? With where you are, with where you're going. And so I kind of developed these principles, pillars, whatever you want to call it, years ago, right? These steps you can follow to get where you want to go. And there's not one way to get there for every person. So it's different for everybody. And even for me, what I end up doing is I'm constantly changing my thoughts on life, on the world, you name it, on a regular basis. So it's one of those things you can't figure out life, but you can figure out how to figure it out, right? So it's more like you can't know how to solve every problem, but you can know how to problem solve, if that makes sense. That was good. I just made that up. Um, and to the outside world, I've got everything together, but I'll be honest with you guys, I have bad days and I have great days, just like a lot of people. And I promise you, if you text me and ask me how it's going, um, my reply is going to be, it's fabulous. Like everything is fabulous. And if you keep saying it, it will be, right? Um, and like I said, I have days where I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to hide away. I want to just be mopey, whatever. It doesn't last very long for me, right? Because I know how to get out of it. And I think that's the thing, is understanding how to fix all this. Um, and I posted the other day on Facebook about how everything. Gosh, I'm going to butcher my own post, my own quote, but basically, things that happen to you, things that all of the your good days, your bad days, all start with right here, right? Like that's your interpretation of the situation. And this friend of mine then commented, well, I think she was kind of thinking of another post and posted it here. I don't know. But she basically said, well, my mom's down the hall with COVID. How am I supposed to, whatever? And I'm like, well, that's not, I've been there, but that's one of those things um, your interpretation of, oh, this is horrible, or what does this really mean? Your interpretation of that situation is what matters the most. Sure, it's not a great, perfect, planned out situation that anybody would want, but how you deal with it is kind of how it begins here in your brain. And I think that's one of those things we got to remember, that, you can either look at things as a setback or a setup for the next big thing. I've had a ton of things not go my way, or so I thought. And the reality is, everything works out exactly how it's supposed to. So it doesn't really matter um, what you think has gone wrong, it always ends up being the right outcome eventually. And this is one of those things that I figured out that for people to work out, it's easy, right? To get in shape, to train, to do all that. I would say eat this one thing, it's good for you. Boom, it's fine, right? That part's easy. The problem is when you disconnect in your brain and you go another direction or another four directions, that's the problem. So once we figure out how you relate to those circumstances, identifying those triggers, not letting them just throw you off and derail you and sit in a corner and eat cookies, right? So as long as you can understand what you're really understanding, life becomes easy. And I think it's a choice. You can choose that things are hard, or you can choose that things are perfect and they're going to be happy for you. And I think that's one of those big things too. Like even with in my more program, you have to know where you are. So I know when I was at my rock bottom, and to me it was horrible. But when I really looked at what it was more of, I was so worried about what the world was going to think about me in my situation that it made it worse. It multiplied it 100 times. And once I identified that and then learned how to stop that, man, everything got easy. But number one thing is knowing where you are. So I identified I was at bottom, ground zero. Roger that. Now it's time to go up. Now you can go up, but what does that really mean? And Emily Fletcher, she teaches meditation online. And I saw this program. It was like, I don't know, $250. And I barely had $250, right? Like I didn't have $250 that didn't need to go somewhere. But I looked at what do all these successful people do? They get up early in the morning, they meditate, things like that. So I saw this program online and I thought, that's what I got to do. So I took the money, paid for this program. And the other thing she said in there that just to me made the best sense ever is she said, everybody wants to be happy, but they don't know what happy means. And it's just like going into a restaurant and you're hungry, right? And you sit down at the table and the waiter or waitress comes up and asks if she can take your order. You said, yes, I'm hungry, bring me food. She would say, okay, but what would you like? Now, you would never say, I just told you I'm hungry, bring me food. That would make no sense. I don't care where you go unless they have one item on the menu, right? But that's what we do with our happiness. We say, I want to be happy, but we don't really know what that would mean. And I think that comes down to, in the MORE program, I help people kind of figure out where they are, but also what happiness would mean to you. And then we work backward from there. And so many people will, also have that mindset of, well, I'd be happy if I had this. Well, now they're qualifying what would make them happy. I've been guilty of saying I would be happy if I had more money. I'd be happy if I had more of this. I'd be happy if I had less of this. Well, that's not the case, right? You're never going to not be as busy as you are. You're always going to be busy. You're never going to not be, something, because the way it is now, life is the chaos of most of our lives is always going to be that way. But how you deal with it, how you adapt with it is what's so important. But I think those little things are really what's so key to this program. And people need to just be honest with themselves, because everybody knows foods that are good for you and foods that are bad for you. And if they don't, everyone has Google at the end of their hand, right on their phone. So I think it's one of those things most people just don't want to be honest with with where they are, and or really what their problems are. And once you can be honest with yourself, that's the key to everything. And that was my deal years ago. I decided that um a lot of things were great in my life, but man, I had two things that were just not good, and identified what they were, right? And it was one thing: I drank too much. Most people didn't even realize I drank that much, but I drank way too much. And the drinking kept me from doing so many great things. The other thing was I was taking Ambien way too much. Not more than the dose, right? But I was taking it every day. I had taken it for years. And it was one of those things that it kind of kept me prisoner. And I knew these things that had to change, but I always would give an excuse or reason when I would actually change that. And it's one of those, I guess I was qualifying it. I would do it when this was necessary or this was the issue. And then I would just finally, just made up my mind that it didn't really do me any good. And the drinking, I remember I had this guy I coached, and he stopped drinking kind of out of the blue. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm gonna stop drinking." But what he did was, it was kind of brilliant, right? He had a drinking problem for sure. And I didn't realize it till we were on a road trip together. And then I saw how much he actually drank. And I was just like, I was blown away by it. But he was still able to manage the rest of his life. However, he got a concealed handgun license. And when you're carrying, your firearm, you can't drink. So that became his reason why he didn't or couldn't drink. So when he started carrying that around, and he started carrying it a lot, he stopped drinking. And that was his reason. That was his, excuse to not drink again. Right. And it kept going. It kept going. It was one of those things, if someone goes 30 days or so, then you're thinking, man, any day they're going to want a beer again. You just don't know the reasoning behind people. So glad that he chose this reason. But we were at Ironman in Texas, and he had he was doing really well in the race. Meanwhile, us spectators and you know everyone else helping out behind the scenes, after about I don't know, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, everybody kind of starts drinking, and it's one of those things. It really doesn't. It just makes you tired, right? It doesn't really help you. And I just remember thinking that after his race, in my hotel room all alone, that he stopped drinking and his life got better. It didn't change. He's not missing out on anything. And I thought, I I thought, here I was, 50 years old, and I started thinking I've spent half my life drunk basically. And I was like, that's the saddest thing I've ever probably said, right? But it wasn't sad. It was only something I knew. And I decided that moment I was done. Nothing good has ever happened because of alcohol. And some people will hear that and they'll try to, correct me and say they met their spouse, whatever, right? Gave them courage, or I don't know. Um, but once I made that decision, I've never looked back. I've had maybe moments where I thought I could use a drink, but it's also the triggers of when I thought I would need a drink, or when I was lonely, when I was bored. It was more to change my emotional state, right? Because a lot of times the emotions felt better than the actual drinking. And I remember someone even gave me a bottle of wine as a gift, like that next morning. Here, I quit drinking last night. Following morning, I'm giving a bottle of wine as a gift. I had that bottle of wine in my refrigerator for over a year just to have it in there. I didn't want to throw it away because it was valuable, right? I ended up re-gifting it to somebody, but it was one of those things. I wasn't tempted by it. I made the decision in my head that I was done. And so just by, again, being honest with myself, that this wasn't helping me and I could just let it go. Um, and it was the same with, with Ambien. It was one of those things I really felt like I could not sleep without Ambien. And I just remember I decided that this was not helping me at all. It was, I don't know if it was harming me, but I'm concerned that Ambien makes you a little dumber in ways. And I just went to my doctor and I was like, look, I, I don't want you to write another prescription. I don't want it. I'm done. Do you know of a way to get off of this that's easier or whatever? Because, quit just stopping cold turkey. Yeah, you're going to be up all night. But that's also where I realized too that if I got up earlier in the morning, I would be tireder. I'd be more tired at night to go to sleep. So that began this whole journey of getting up at 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning, regardless of how I felt. And if I needed more sleep, I could take a nap later. But that became one of those things that actually set in motion everything about, how I slept. And I mean, I sleep great. I've done it for a couple of years now, and it's amazing. So when I tell people that it's easy to get off of it, um, but the hard part is deciding here that you want to get off. And for me, I think I took it to just kind of disconnect for those last few hours before I fell asleep. And I mean, I'm so glad I did it, right? And so it's one of those things, just making the decision to be better, to get more, to become happier is what it's really about. You got to be honest with yourself and know that your life's just off track. Like once you just agree that, whatever I've been doing for the last 50 years isn't working and it's time to change. Well, it's easy for me to get that ball rolling for you and then help you keep it moving, right? I've created this program for 10 weeks because 10 weeks is typically what it takes. It's super aggressive, but it's doable. Everything's doable if you want to do it. And I think that's the big key is, do you want to do it? Trying to think if I forgot anything, but yeah, I mean, I have, it was not uncommon to have several glasses of wine and then throw an Ambien down and then slowly not know what I'm texting people or, as I'm fading out. And to me as an adult, that's to lose that much control is it's pretty embarrassing. Like it shouldn't happen. And no one really knew that was the case. And one story that shocked me is I I I woke people would give me one year for Christmas to the holidays. I got a big tub of this corn, like this popcorn, right? But it had the caramel corn, cheese corn, popcorn, right? All that stuff in there. And I'd gone to bed, my normal wine and Ambien concoction. And I woke up in the middle of the night in just pain. All of my body was hurting. And I realized I was covered in this kettle corn, like caramel corn was stuck to my body. I don't normally eat caramel corn, but for some reason in my ambient state, I was eating in bed. I guess I passed out and spilled it all over myself. It was stuck to me and I was rolling on it. It hurt like like crazy. And so I set up a camera and I basically waved to the camera like I'm coherent and I'm going to bed. And then it was like 15 minutes later, I got out of bed. I went and got a glass of wine. I went and got chips. And I'm like, I had no memory of it. And I had this video proof that I was that off track. And it still took a while before I stopped. But it's one of those things, man, once you realize something's not right, you're just a little bit broken. We all are. There's a lot of people out there that can help you get this on track. So that's all I have to say about that, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I always hope to be more consistent on here, but I can honestly say I really don't know. I feel like I'm taking so many directions throughout the days and weeks of my life that I just don't know. I just don't know. But I would like to be here. And if you guys want to hear something, send me a note. You can go to timtarpley.com and my website. I think there's contact on there, but my email is really hard. It's tim@timtarpley.com. Send me an email. Let me know if you want to hear something. And guess I'll see y'all next time. Bye.